This is one of the many fights that I had been surprised on people talking about. This fight is Dio versus Cars, which means their multiple forms are also factored in the fight by separating them. Dio Brando, human turned vampire with complete control of his body, and then Dio, while still a vampire, he doesn't have the same amount of control on his body, but that's made better due to his powerful stand, the World, with the ability to stop time. In the blue corner, we have Cars, leader of the Last Pillarmen, a race of ancient superhuman beings that can do everything a vampire do except better. Cars was originally just the leader of the Pillarmen, but ended up as an ultimate being known as Ultimate Cars, a form achieved through evolution caused by the Redstone of Asia. Now, I'm going to be going over Dio Brando and Phantom Blood and then regular Cars because that's the vanilla of the battle in all of this. So I give Dio a lot of respect for turning into a vampire and showing off his power, and each time we encounter Dio in part 1, he has a new trick up his sleeve. In the fight against everyone after turning into a vampire, Dio wiped the floor with everybody, and I knew he was busted when him throwing a cop ended up severing people in half and cutting their limbs off, and one of the legs alone caught Speedwagon and broke his arm. We see how powerful a vampire could be with a weak body, and Dio had shown everything that the gap between a vampire with no sense and a bloodlust versus a competent person with new power can be like. Going on further, Dio develops his vaporization flash freezing technique and his Space Ripper Stingy Eyes. His vaporization technique is meant to be a direct counter to Hamon, but it's also a versatile ability in these fictional fights. Though, don't quote me on that when I'm bringing it up later on this video. Meanwhile, we have his Space Ripper Stingy Eyes. The SRSE can be seen as a water cutter jet in a sense, except that it doesn't lose power in the same way that water does. After a while, water will lose power once the momentum gets further out, and all the water gets over there, but the SRSE can touch the sky like it's Kanye West. He can squeeze metal hard enough to pop it right off, and with only 2 fingers, he can destroy that kick you thought you were going to go for. Well, Dio does really well against humans, and he's also the top vampire around these parts. And that's how I see Dio, the lead vampire, and any other vampire falls short in comparison because they lack competence. So we're going to be done with Dio, now going on into Cars. The Pillarmen share feats when it comes to things not relating to their abilities. They all share the ability to do things in their biology. Eating people and vampires at a cellular level, body contortion, the ability to phase, ridiculous speed, and ridiculous strength. They would also have the high stats in durability and regeneration if there was a chart for it, and with how fast Cars is, he incorporates that with his other abilities. For example, you have his light mode. This is where his bone blade moves its teeth at a speed that reflects light so fast that the whole blade shines bright even in the dead of night. He can wait a minute, hold on, that was bars too, okay. He can use his blades from his forearms and his calves, and since his blades are a part of him, he can drink with them too. Now let's go over the scenario between Part 1 Dio and regular Cars. Going over both characters, you can easily see that Dio has no easy form of approaching. Using his SRSE will be something to throw at Cars for one time, and in that instance you get Cars realizing that Dio isn't just a regular vampire. A regular vampire doesn't try to learn anything about their body, let alone try things that would cause them to find these new abilities. Cars will probably have a bit of respect for Dio right there, but then would probably just try to attack him head on. Dio would attack too if he doesn't think that Cars is a matchup for him, which he probably doesn't if he doesn't have any information on him beforehand, since Dio doesn't really see anyone on the same level of him. So you have Dio leaping in like how he did against Jonathan, and Cars coming through like he did against Stroheim. Now it's Dio's flash freeze technique versus Cars and his bone blades. If he tries to use his hands against the blade, his hands would be done for, but let's just say that it's hand to hand and he doesn't use the bone blades. And Dio tries to freeze Cars' arm, but Cars would just end up seeing how Dio's ability functions and combat that with the exact same thing. That's just saying if Dio would have a chance to hold Cars, but he wouldn't. To freeze his arm, he would have to hold his hand or arm, and both of those would just eat Dio's hand right off. Right there, Dio would jump away trying to figure out to his next move, but that's saying if he was even able to jump away. If the cells of Cars are already holding on to Dio and eating at him, it's going to be difficult to pull away. While trying to pull away, he could just grab Dio with his other arm and pull Dio in, eating at him just like the same way that Santana did. Dio can regenerate only if the parts still exist. If Cars eats his hand, then he loses that hand. You can see that Dio relies on being able to put himself back together, not recreating the entire parts. That's why you just see him as a head, because he's unable to recreate his entire body. He can just regenerate using people's body parts. And ignoring how I made them approach each other earlier, there isn't any way Dio can win against Cars. When they say you can only kill a Pillar Man with Hamon, they're pretty much right. Unless you have some sort of thing that basically atomizes them, then they're pretty much going to be fine. Or unless you have something that will extremely beat them to death, but you won't really have that here. Plus, Cars is both faster and stronger than Dio. Adding on to that, Pillarman can go through way worse than what Dio has to offer. AC/DC has veins able to expel blood that boils at an extremely high heat, and that doesn't even affect him at all. Also, he's boiling his blood. That's actually insane. When it comes to Cars, I doubt he'd even be frozen. The cold doesn't bother him anyways. Now, for Dio and the World versus regular Cars and Ultimate Cars. Dio is a very strong character. Stronger than he was before because of his stand, and if I was able to purely compare Dio Brando to Dio, well, Dio Brando was still stronger, though the strength isn't what you want to focus on. It's his ability to stop time. Putting Part 3 Dio and Cars together is honestly one of the oddest fights ever. With Cars not being able to see stands, he's at a huge disadvantage for trying to hit Dio. In terms of the fight, the whole thing is neutral because nothing can really happen to Cars to kill him. Say that they both charge at each other, and then Dio stops time, he does his Muda Muda punches, and then when time is resumed, Cars flies back from the momentum of all the punches. Then he gets back up and charges at Dio again, and then the World punches Cars right in the face, knocks him back again, and then he just gets up again. Dio could just repetitively launch Cars away from him without having to move an inch, but Cars would just have to keep on getting up because the World isn't enough to purely kill Cars. You know that old saying they use in the Batman movie? An unstoppable force versus an immovable object? This is what you get here, right here in a sense. The problem with this, I'm in between Dio fighting Den-On. If he sees Cars getting up, there's two things to take away from it. He's resilient when it comes to regeneration and stamina, but at the same time he sees this being unable to make contact with him. In order of approaches, Dio needs time to stop time. So what he'd be able to do is stop time, punch barrage, and then stop time. That's how it would go. After a long time, I'd like to think that both of them know what's going on. During a punch barrage, after the first couple of times, I'd like to think that Cars would use his ankle blades to hold himself from getting blown back. So after the World finishes punching, Cars attacks one of Dio's arms, but the World would grab that arm, then Cars throw the other arm, and then the World grabs that one too. If someone can draw, I'd like to see that. It's just a confused Cars looking at his arms being held by an invisible source. So then he's just like, what, Nani? Like, what the hell is this? And then Dio is just sitting in front of him like, Korega Zowardo da, or something like that. And I mean, well, if this were to happen, this means that he lost. Who lost? Dio. If Dio has had the World grab Cars by the arms, it would be game over for Dio since he can't defend himself anymore. Meanwhile, Cars has his leg blade that he can kick Dio with and drink him right up. This here is a pretty specific situation, but I believe that something like this is pretty possible. It's even possible that Cars shines from his bone blade and he either scares Dio away to get him away from him, or he does what he did against Lisa Lisa. The reason why I'm saying Dio could possibly get scared is due to it being light related. If he thinks that it's a UV light, he'll probably jump away and try not to combat that, so that would end up making it into a mega stalemate from Cars running into nothing to Dio running away from something that he doesn't even understand. Either that or what I said about the whole Lisa Lisa scenario, where he temporarily blinds the other person and ends up phasing into wherever he needs to get an advantage. Once he gets that advantage, he can stab Dio and drink him, or cut off one of his limbs. Either way, Cars gets some type of upper hand, or it just gets put back into a stalemate, if anything. I believe that there's someone out there to put Cars down with just punches alone, to the point where Cars is just mush, but I can easily tell you that Dio is not that person. Based off of pure strength in his ability, if Dio was to ever get hit or stabbed by Cars, it would be fatal. Originally, I believed that Cars would just get to Dio and that would be it, but how is it even possible to just get to Dio when you're getting punched by something you don't even see or sense? I call this specific fight a draw, so that puts 2 for Cars and 1 for Dio, or it's just 1-0 if we don't even number the draw. Now for the final match, Dio in the World versus Ultimate Cars. Ultimate Cars is a being where a lot of things that put cars at a disadvantage don't matter anymore. The two things that we can take note of in this fight the most is his ability to manipulate anything that's on him that comes from him, and his ability to detect air movement. Dio's only line of defense is time stop, and it already won't do enough against cars, let alone Ultimate Cars. Sensing the movement in the air that the world creates when he punches, he can dodge those punches and charge right into Dio. The same cars would also outsmart Dio, so that time stop could work in Cars' advantage. Doing something like shooting the feathers at him, and then Dio either dodges or punches the feathers away, then he stops time to punch Cars away, and then he resumes time, but once he resumes time, the feathers turn into tentacles and wrap Dio up. This isn't even some sort of headcanon thing. Cars has actually turned feathers into both piranhas and octopus tentacles. Ultimate Cars pretty much runs lap around any form of Dio unless it's Dio over heaven, because that's just no. This isn't even a fair matchup in my opinion, but it's still debated, which I'm puzzled on. And people might say that, oh Caleb, you just love to be on Cars all the time. In my personal opinion, I kind of like Dio more. After a certain while of just going over Cars so much, just actually got annoying for me. And I had to go over this because I was thinking Cars is actually a pretty, Pillarman alone are pretty busted, but it's not one of those things that you could just put together and it's just like, okay, yeah, Cars is gonna come through and just get wiped. It's not the case. Now, if you guys want ways of Dio beating Jotaro, just make him 100% and it's game over for Jotaro. But I hope you guys enjoyed this, and for those that enjoyed Dio, I'm sorry. I like Dio too, but I'd rather put him against other franchises or maybe some of like this other strongest stand users in JoJo. Pillarman versus anyone in JoJo that isn't a strong stand user isn't really the best thing. And you even have like strong stand users that are like Dio and they still don't really stand that much of a chance. I'd honestly like to try some of the Pillarmen against some of the strongest stands in JoJo, or like that you have in JoJo. And if you guys want to see that, there's already a video I've already done about that in the top 10 strongest stands. You can see that, it's going to be in the end cards. So I hope you guys enjoyed. Leave a like if you did, subscribe to stay updated, and comment for whoever you guys want to see next or any thoughts that you guys have about this. I'll see you guys in the next one though. So until then, peace out and Godspeed.